What's next on our list?
Ukraine. We have two things we want to talk about in Ukraine.
Yes.
The first, I guess, we can talk about the fall of Bakhmut.
Yeah.
So this city, Bakhmut, is in southeast Ukraine. The Russians there's been intense fighting for it for several months now. So basically, when the Ukraine war started, the Russians went hard for Kyiv at the beginning, and they couldn't take that. So they were driven out. They retreated back. Then they sought to infiltrate the Donbass, which is kind of the region that's right on the Russian border. And they were able to gain some ground, but they haven't been able to capture any really strategic areas as far as resource production or transportation hubs. So instead they focused on this city of Bakhmut, which has a population of about 75,000 people. They did this because they wanted some kind of victory. And
right.
it's a big enough city that them capturing it is a big city. And so they just did this past weekend. Meanwhile, Western allies were talking to Ukraine and questioning why they were defending it so hard, because it isn't really a hub. And so they wondered, are these resources and soldiers and weapons and ammunition that you're using to defend Bakhmut, is that worth it, or should you be using it somewhere else? But some think that they were doing that strategically, that they made a stand in Bakhmut to thin Russian forces as much as possible. And there are estimates that the Russians lost at least up to 100,000 Russian soldiers were killed or wounded, taken out of the battlefield, which is tragic. Obviously big. Yeah. And so in the meantime, what the Ukrainians have been doing, what President Zelensky has been doing, has been going around to all of the Western countries, all of his Western allies, and petitioning for more support, for more weapons, for more ammunition. We just mentioned last week that the U.S. gave permission for Ukrainian soldiers to be trained on how to pilot these F-16 fighter jets, which are really highly advanced.
Huge.
Yeah. And Biden's going to green light other European countries giving the F-16s to Ukraine.
Yeah.
So he's been collecting all of this weaponry, all of this ammunition, and Ukraine's been building up for a big counteroffensive, is the idea. And I will say, Ukraine has been very good at misdirecting people, which obviously they have to be. They can't allow information to get out so that the Russians can know when they're going to make their movements and make their attacks. But there is an expectation that in the coming months, June, July, Ukraine is going to stage this massive, really quick, sharp counteroffensive to take back a lot of the land that the Russians have taken in the east. And so I guess we're going to see how that happens.
Yeah.
As of now, the Russians do have Bakhmut. The Ukrainians are still fighting them from the outside of the city. But I guess that's my status update on the war.
No, I mean, listen, the fall of Bakhmut is... I was reluctant about Ukrainians holding it for so long. As someone who's not a military expert, but an observer of politics and history, it's in a war of attrition, I don't think Ukraine wins. I don't think Ukraine wins a war of attrition where you're just throwing guys in the meat grinder, because Russia's going to have more guys. Russia's going to have more guns. Russia's going to have more ammo. I don't think a war of attrition is the way Ukraine should be fighting. But, I think there was a lot of the Russian desire to take Bakhmut was very spiritual. It was for the national confidence. And, almost in the way Hitler's taking of Stalingrad, Hitler's desire to take Stalingrad during World War II wasn't the most strategic thing. He didn't need that city to make it through the Caucasus and get the oil, but he decided to go there because it had Stalin's name attached, and it was a real prestigious victory if he won it, and that influenced Stalin's defense because it was his named city, and and I think that was very similar to this. It was a very spiritual fight on top of the battle rather than strategic.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as far as the word of attrition part, I think you're very much right that Russia has Ukraine vastly outmanned.
Yeah.
But because Russian logistics and
you're right.
the quality of these soldiers is extremely low, it ends up, at least it's possible that these scales can be balanced.
Listen, it depends on the Ukraine to Russia loss ratio.
Yeah.
If it's Ukraine 1-1, it's not good.
Yeah.
If it's Ukraine 4-1, might be really good for Ukraine. If it's Ukraine 6-1, we're talking about a total victory.
Yeah.
You know.
And I don't know what those numbers are.
The
exactly.
estimates I hear are 3-1 generally for the war. That's what I've heard. I don't know if I buy that. It's hard to gain understandings of casualty estimates during a war because no side wants to tell the truth. You know? So it's really hard for me to say what's true. I don't think it's 1-1. I definitely think the Russians have taken more casualties. If it's a 2-1 ratio or 3-1 ratio or 4, I don't know. But yeah. But so Russia has taken Bakhmut. But another development this week was that there has been an attack on Russia proper. There's been a battle inside of Russia itself, not in Ukraine. In the Belgorod Oblast, which is a city outside of Kharkiv. You might remember Kharkiv from the first couple months of the war. Russia's failure to take Kharkiv was a big hit to their campaign, or their time it took to take Kharkiv was a big hit to their campaign. And now inside of Russia, Belgorod is under attack. Now, who did this attack is a huge cause of controversy. The Ukraine government has said it wasn't us. We had nothing to do with this attack. And the United States said we had no planning on this attack. We did not know about this attack that was going on. And that's a big deal because the United States doesn't want to give Ukraine weapons to then go in and invade Russia. That's not the point of the weapons because that's too much of an escalation for the United States to handle. They don't want that. They want their weapons to be used in Ukraine for the defense of Ukraine. They don't want it going into Russian borders. They don't want it on that side. So with this attack going on, the people who said that a group has claimed responsibility for the assault, and it was the Russian Volunteer Corps, or the RDK. This militia is Ukrainian partisans who are mix of Ukrainian, mix of Russian, inside of Russia, who are fighting Russia from the inside. In this attack, they used at least 2 MRAPs, mine-resistant ambush protected vehicles. These were supplied from the United States. We don't know how these weapons got in the hands of this partisan group in Russia. The Ukrainian government had said that they never transferred it, and the RDK has said they never requested the transfer. What they did say was a little spicy, little sassy. They said something along the lines, I'm going to paraphrase, like, we found these weapons and this equipment at the local supply store. And that's a play on what Putin said in 2014 when he was asked, where did these troops get the Russian weapons in Crimea? And he said, you can get these weapons at any surplus store. That's the play going on. So was the U.S. involved? Did the Ukraine know that they transferred the weapons? I don't know. But U.S. weapons are being used to attack Russia proper right now. And that's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. We just don't know what to believe. Like, we don't know, because Ukraine has denied connection to
complete
the militia group.
Totally complete disconnection.
So we just can't know when it comes down to it. I think if these are independent people, like an independent group within Russia doing this, I think that's awesome.
It's awesome.
So cool.
It's so dope.
Yeah.
How'd they get these U.S. weapons, though? How did they get these trucks? These mine resistors? Like, we've only transferred, how many have we transferred? We transferred 600, 500, something like that. It's not like we didn't transfer like a fleet of them, like a massive amount. So they are limited in their number that we sent over, but I don't know. I think it's crazy. Yeah, okay, we sent 500 of them. And 2 of them showed up inside of Russia. So that's pretty spicy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That is.
But I hope more stuff like this happens. I hope more pockets of Russia.
Yeah.
Because what's happening now is Russia is pushing so many men into the offensive flank in the south that their border defenses are relatively thin.
Yeah.
Because their border defenses, they're like, Ukraine isn't going to attack us because of all these Western stipulations of don't attack Russia proper. But they're leaving themselves kind of open to stuff like this. And it's going to make them hard. Their logistics capabilities are going to be a lot harder to manage if they're getting attacked behind them.
Yeah.
Right?
They have to split their attention.
Yeah. Roads could start getting damaged if partisans keep doing stuff like this.
True.
And that's a big detriment. We're talking about war of attrition. If you can't give your ammo to the guys at the front, you're screwed.
Totally. It does scare me about raising the nuclear threat, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This raises it more than a lot of things, I think. The fact that Russia internally was attacked.
Yes.
It's not good.
That's the whole point of having nukes, is to prevent your country from getting attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they do connect that to Ukraine, then
it's not good. It's not good. And there should be some type of punishment if Ukraine did fully fund these things from the West.
Yeah.
I don't know what that punishment looks like, because I don't want to stop the support of the war in Ukraine, but I don't know because it would not be good if Ukraine is fully supporting armored attacks to an extent into Russia.
Well, it seems so difficult. It seems crazy to me because Zelensky is not an idiot.
Yeah, no.
And I can't imagine. I mean, maybe he just did this without talking to Western allies at all.
That's not like him so far.
It doesn't make sense. And I also feel like they absolutely would have advised him not to do this.
Absolutely.
They've been hard on that line the whole way through.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Who knows how they got the trucks? Point is, Russia, I think June is going to be a really rough month for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really hard for the Russian military in a couple days. I think the counterattack is coming and it's going to be crazy.
I hope so.
I hope so too.